Good evening, everybody. This is the Caesar Wisdom team. Our call with the Constitution Room tonight is going to be the Act of State. And we've got Low Tide on here with us. We're looking for our Jack. And our speakers tonight will be Jim, Silver 57, and Mason. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys right now to start sharing with us. So thanks a bunch. It's 1/10/25, a brand new year. Okay, I'll turn it over to whoever wants to start the conversation. Jim, Mason.
I'll start this one off.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, so there is a need to recognize pre-Abraham Lincoln and after Abraham Lincoln. America was subjected to a corporate masquerade, and so when you look in the landscape around yourself, the state of California, the state of Kansas, Texas, the state of Texas, in their current versions, is a British territorial corporation structure. And every state has a municipal structure. To come back under common law, the American people have to raise their hand and step forward in recognizing that these corporations exist as hired help. There are over 3,100 counties across America, and currently every last one of them is in a corporate structure. And there also exists in parallel a municipal county. We have not been taught how to properly read the mail. Our education system was overhauled in the early 1900s and taken over. America has been subjected to a communist attempted takeover. Every generation for the last 7 generations has been systematically dumbed down. We don't know what we don't know. So, in order to recognize ourselves as the American, we must open our mind and receive new information and concepts. The mind and a parachute are amazing, and they have a lot in common. In order for both of them to work and save your life, they have to be able to open. Closed mind, closed parachute. Both can get you in a world of hurt. And from here, I'm going to hand it over to Mason.
Okay, everybody. We're on the short end of this vacation, if you want to call it that. And the vacation was for everybody to get awake to something going on in their life that they didn't like, that has been around for quite a while. The system, as corrupt as it is, whenever it got started, which was long before Lincoln stepped in, this thing has been a historical fact for millennia and longer. And we're just now coming into the final phases of it, which is the important time for those few who are capable of standing up and addressing the very things that they're living under that are demonic and are way outside the scope of the spiritual principles that we're all now being forced to face. So, as tough as this may seem, for most people, they're just not going to make this trip. And it's not necessarily because of any wrongdoing. It has to do with their growth and their abilities to stand up and say something where they know they don't like something in the system, but they just can't seem to get enough to stand up and do something about it, no matter how menial it may seem at the moment, but can be very scary for a lot of people. Now, I'm bringing this point of active state into the picture just simply because it's an actual foundational element that has been with us in this system under our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and even let's just go back as far as Magna Carta, and whatever acts may have been taking place during the earlier history of the European people. But this active state is a very important element to get in your head. And we talked a lot about the sovereignty issue. And most people are out there going like, well, what do I got to do? What can I think? What can I say? What do I need to file? You got all these things going on that are irrelevant to the first part. And once you begin to realize in your own personal life the things that you don't agree with, look at those things very closely because they're going to be, at some point of your process, the things that you took part in some previous time. Whether you agree with what I'm telling you or not is not my problem. It's not my issue. It's something that each of us, sooner or later, will come to, whether we agree with it now or not. So, this state thing, the state is a composition, a group of individuals. It isn't about some piece of paper on the wall that's got a map line drawn around it. It's got to do with the people in it, the union of those people, their union, which is, when you get into some of the technical definitions of federal and so on, you're going to find out that this league of people have been identified as a league of princes. That's what a league is. It's a union of princes in a specific jurisdiction. And each one of the states, whether they've come into this union according to the true technical definitions that were required to create a state or not, that's another whole topic. But the point is that there isn't a single person that's involved in this union that can't come to this level of understanding and consciousness to get them to at least take part in their own personal growth so that they can, if they don't make it this time, at least next time they'll have a heads up. And some of us have come around all these times and are now in a position of coming here not because we necessarily wanted to, but because we reached the point where our development required us to take part in helping the universe to weed out some of the souls that are ready. And for the ones that aren't, it's no big deal. I mean, you're going to get it sooner or later. Some lifetime you're going to come to this. So let's start with this state thing. The state is a union of sovereigns in this nation under our Constitution. You want to discuss or debate which Constitution you think is the right one. I've made this comment already. You go back and look in the congressional record and find the original document, the original Constitution in its script form. It's hard as heck to read. But if you want to really find out if there is one and what it's called, you're going to find it. And it's also been retranscribed into text, and it's called the Constitution in its literal form. That means it's properly capitalized according to the original writing that the founders put down on parchment. So that is the only issue has to do with whether or not you're looking at the actual proper capitalization or not. The fact remains is that the Constitution was not written for your private sovereignty. This thing was written to control and regulate commercial activity affecting the public across state lines, across your county lines, across international lines. That's what the Constitution is designed to do, is to control and regulate and to make sure that the private sector doesn't get trampled by the commercial sector. So if you get that part, if you understand what I just got through telling you, each and every one of us in our private capacity have the attributes of sovereignty in us. We were birthed with it. And whether or not you grow to where you can activate it or not, well, that's another matter that you're going to have to take up with whoever you're either praying to or you're listening to on the inner to get guidance with. But once you come to that particular spot, you are unique in the fact that you and your fellow sovereigns, whoever they might be, have the authority and the power, and you've earned the right to contract amongst yourselves. And in the lizard's world, or the reptilian's world, when it comes to this active state, they're not talking about people. They're talking about nations. They're talking about treaties between nations, between states. And there's been some very powerful discussions on this topic. One of them, I put the posting in the links on our website, which is entitled Active State. And it's a very succinct compilation of the courts and what they've looked at and how they decide to deal with acts of state. And of course, if you go and read that document, and you're going to find out that there's a place in there where it talks about the agreements between sovereigns. And now, if you can't look in the mirror and see a sovereign there, then don't bother looking at this active state, because it's talking about the very thing that we as a people have acquired in our private side. And when we contract, we have the absolute right to that contract and in all of its forms, as long as it doesn't violate the privacy or the public's domain, okay, of someone else. Because you can't just write a law and say, I'm gonna make it okay for us to go over and rob Joe every third Wednesday. Sorry, that's not part of the deal here. So by the time you get to where I'm trying to take you, you're going to already have a complete and total understanding of exactly what you have the power and the duties to do in this time, in these frequencies, in this spiritual growth cycle that we're all in, coming into this amazing golden age. And those that have an inkling about what I'm talking about are going to be able to move forward in a way that they're not going to believe as this thing unfolds. Now, the most important thing in this active state is the fact that you have, and I've told you this, you have the right to contract. That's Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 has two elements in there that the state cannot mess with. One is the gold and silver coin, and the other one are your private contracts. And that means that that document you agree with someone else in your private capacity is an active state. Now, here's the key. All the land in this country, because this is going into the mortgage and the housing industry and all the land in this country, every state that was either purchased or taken by force or whatever you want to call it, that has a constitution, regardless of whether it's correct or not, and then most of them are totally messed up, the people in their private capacity are sovereigns. And they have the absolute right to contract in a sovereign capacity. That's on the private side. Once you've done that, the active state doctrine, which simply says this: the courts, when it comes to active states between sovereigns, have no jurisdiction. Well, that's a pretty powerful statement. The problem is that the act that they're talking about was a bunch of government entities that put together this active state doctrine to give themselves immunity outside the confines of a foreign nation. Now, you might ask this question: well, if this has to do with foreign nations, then what are we looking at here? Well, you and me, in our sovereign capacity, we're foreign to the government of the U.S. We're also foreign to the government of our state when it comes to our private side. And especially now, when all those people are no longer even identified accordingly, according to our Constitution, according to the Article 4, Section 2. And they're all aliens. And so we're foreigners in their eyes, and they're aliens in our eyes. But we're also sovereign states between us. So when we put together a document, I'll give you one good example. Uh, Most of you are probably familiar with and heard the term mechanics lien. A lien. Well, that's a person. They don't even identify it according to any kind of status because it's not. It's a commercial entity because that entity is a licensed entity. So it's not having the right to do anything that it's doing. It's all under contract or agreement and licensed with the state. And so technically it's just a commercial activity that's subject to all of the rules governing commercial acts, which is anything commercial affecting the public. So that lien is pretty much irrelevant to this active state that I'm talking about. Now, you want to file a lien that's appropriate to the people and that will be looked at in the right uh, scenario here with respect to the agencies who think they have control over everything. This active state is actually based on the allodium side of our land and the relationship of the people as sovereigns to that allodium title. There's some good case law on the subject. The people are the sovereign here. And the allodium title, which is no one has the power to regulate, control, tax a piece of allodium property. Why? Because it belongs to the sovereign. Now in England, this little term allodium and freehold kind of fit together, and the comments are made in that Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary, and it's true that the king doesn't have the allodium title. He doesn't need it. He owns all of it. Well, the same thing applies here. We don't technically need an allodium title because we all own it already. So how would the king address a piece of land that he decided that he wanted to take control of for some private purpose? Uh, he'd just go put up a sign, no trespassing, or the king's domain, or whatever. Okay. Well, the same principle was won by the people at the Revolution. The principle of it. All it's taking is for the people to wake up to their power, their rights, and what to do in order to notice the system. I don't care whether you got a state ID on you or not. I don't care what you're thinking you have to put plates on your cars or anything else relative to that system. The first thing you got to do is to wake up to who you are and what your rights and powers and your immunities are. And I say that word immunity because that's one of the words listed in Article 4, Section 2 of the Constitution. Your privileges and immunities. Okay? What are we immune from? What are our immunities? We as sovereign states and citizens in that state are immune from any commercial control or regulation from any government agency, period. And as long as you don't step over the line into the public world, they have no jurisdiction over you or your acts or the land that you've liened. Now, the lien is the most important part of this. It isn't about a recording, it's about a posting, a notice, and who you're going to notice about all this stuff. The sheriff is the guy who's the one that comes out and kicks you out of your house. Well, that happens to be the very first guy on the list when it comes to getting him to wake up to his responsibilities and what his job is with respect to you as an exempt sovereign. You're exempt from his jurisdiction unless somebody else gets damaged by you in their privacy. Now, that doesn't give you the right to go out and do any kind of commercial stuff just because you think you're sovereign. That's still a private issue. It's private by its very nature. And it's the most powerful relationship that people can develop between themselves. So, active state, allodium, lien. That's interesting. You put those four words together, and then you put down a piece of paper, your claim. Your claim is wherever your domicile's at, whatever that might be. As long as you have a good understanding about what your status needs to be, whether you're identified accordingly or not, is irrelevant to this issue. Because it's the state's jurisdiction, the agencies, that were mandated by their oath of allegiance in the first place to make sure that the private sector is completely and totally exempt from all the commercial operations that go on in the general public. And they have to identify correctly. What do? They identify all their commercial stuff. They put plates and stickers and licenses and taxes and regulations and on and on and on. And that's the commercial world. And we've all been led to believe that, oh, that's the law. That's not the law. That's the codes, rules, and regulations that the system took an oath of allegiance to create for one purpose, to protect the privacy of the sovereigns in this country. So everything's been flipped upside down. So if you think you got an issue with the system, look in that mirror, ask yourself a question. What about this system don't I like? Well, what about it is in my face? And what is it that I might need to do something, because you can't get an attorney to take care of this. Attorneys are all aliens. They all have allegiances to a foreign power. You know, the British Crown and all the Admiralty rules. And worst of all the attorneys have been enforcing all those 10 planks of the Communist Manifest. That's what they have to take tests on when they go into law school. It isn't necessarily the quotes of the 1 through 10, but I'll tell you what, all the stuff they're dealing with is listed there. The first one is to get rid of the private land in this country. That's plank number 1. What are you talking about? Get rid of the private land. That would be like dropping your ship anchor off the coast of England and going in there and putting up a big sign and saying the king is now subject to the king of Spain. That's not going to fly. Well, but that's what we've done. We've allowed this to happen. They came in and they put signs on all of us, identified according to all this miscapitalization, all the licensing regulations, and all the other crap that we bend over and say, okay, if I don't follow your rules, oh, please don't hurt me too bad. Oh, well, too bad. What's too bad anymore? They've done it to everybody. So all I'm trying to get across here, guys, is that these principles I'm giving you are not haphazard. And if you'll look at yourself in the mirror and put yourself in a situation where you can see a little crown on your head, whether it's visible or not, and ask yourself the question, what all can I do in my own private life that won't violate the rights of someone else? And is my neighbor going to do the same thing? And when all of the neighbors are doing the same thing, everybody's operating in accordance with all the spiritual laws and principles. Do unto others. You've heard that one. So this is not complicated, but in some instances, depending upon where you might be in this system right now, you might be looking at a mortgage. You might be looking at a foreclosure. You might be looking at a tax sale. You might be looking at a garnishment. There's a whole, God, the list is monstrous. But the first steps are you. And if you can't get that through your head, if you think this little exercise that we're going through right now is going to continue on for some undetermined period of time, so everybody's going to get on board, you're missing it. Because if you can't get on board, if you haven't gotten on board already, you may already be too late. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic or nasty or trying to give anybody a bunch of a hooey. I'm telling you the truth because I've already been through these steps. I've been drugged through the mud, the blood, and the beer. And I know what it was that got me clear of it. Did that mean it stopped happening? No. But I was willing to stand up and say no. And then, because I knew better, I was also only focused on the system. I only went into the courts. I went into the legislatures. I went into all those agencies that I'm telling you about. And I tried to give them, I didn't try, I gave them the law as it was intended and as they're supposed to be enforcing it. And that's what our biggest challenge is right now. Because instead of running out to find yourself an alien entity, attorney, lawyer, whatever, to take care of your problem, you're not going to get rid of your problem. Because your problem isn't leaving you until you deal with it. You got to walk the walk. You got to step into the fire. You think California is burning for no reason? You think all those states back in the east are all being frozen over and washed out for no reason? These are all spiritual lessons for all those souls that are involved there. And if they don't recognize it, if they don't wake up to what's going on and start looking in that mirror and realize that they got something they've been missing and they need to do it, then it's okay. Because it's just like the 2-year-old trying to get to the pro football league. It's okay. He's got to go through the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th, and the 6th. It don't matter. But he doesn't see all that. He just wants to play football. But I'm sorry, that's not how it goes. And the spiritual laws, you're not going to break those. They're immutable. So I don't know how much more I can dialogue on this particular topic. I'd be more than happy to, give some personal information, whatever that might be needed at some point. The active state document that I'm talking about, it's not necessarily in a complete format that you might think is appropriate. And I only say that because it was done with respect to land claim and the allodium title, which was a land patent. There was a lot of things that I did early on in my history that weren't necessarily 100% to where I am right now. And what I'm talking about right now is very pertinent. It's on point. It's up front. And the system is getting ready to completely cave. And as fortunate or unfortunate as you may be in this situation, you may be able to get a pass or you may not. It just all depends on your own spiritual growth and where you happen to be in this whole thing. So I'm here for give whoever needs the assistance, and I'm not going to do your work for you because the work that has to be done is 100% on you. All I can do is point the way. I yield.
Arjax, oh, why don't you step in and say hi?
Yep, I'm here. I was on mute. I'm sorry. I was talking, but I was on mute. Well, that was very, very interesting, Mason. I enjoyed hearing all that. Does anybody have any questions on that? If you do, just raise your hand or either unmute yourself. Well, Jim, do you have anything that you'd like to add to what Mason said?
These are things that people are not acquainted with. And like Mason said, the last folks you want to go run to is an attorney. Yes, they're learning the Communist Manifesto, but the attorneys are also recognized as the King of England's civilian militia, here to steal everything back for the king. Now, it's recognized that even the attorneys have been improperly trained and compartmentalized in their knowledge. Many of them are now being confronted, and you have a growing body of them that are tearing up their bar cards. There's a disarray going on inside the ranks of the states. Here on Washington, where I'm at, the attorneys have been approached at the State Bar Association level. And you're going to find out that they have lowered the bar so low that a blind man can limbo underneath it. So you're entering into a day where if you turn to an attorney, you might just get an ambulance chaser. The entire solution is inside your hand and in your mind, inside your spirit. The question is, are you brave enough to reach up and grab it? I yield.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about anything that's been said tonight?
Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
How you doing? Um, I really don't know what I want to ask. I'm talk for just a second. We'd like to start out by saying thanks to uh, Salty and Mason. I've tried to follow. I've followed Salty for a long, long time, and Mason. Your time that you've been back from wherever you was at for the last 3, 4 years. I sure appreciate all the information, and I'm very much, still very much lost. I'm starting to understand the prince, and uh, that I am sovereign, and the laws. Understanding that that do unto others that you'd have them to do unto you, and love your God Almighty. And a while back, I think I gave you a text that I have the state seal, with the paperwork filled out for my home, saying, do not trespass, that you told us about weeks ago. And yeah, I guess I'm just kind of still lost, even though I'm trying to look at the natural law and understand exactly how that fit in, or really truly you know how to make sure that I don't break natural law, I think Mason hit it just a few minutes ago. Is the bottom line of it, the shortcut, my slang is that I can't hurt anybody. I'm to go out there and do live a godly life the best I can, and respect my neighbors and their rights and all the people around me, and that the courts have no authority over me whatsoever, and that I need to quit complying. And I do that. One of the ways that I do that is by the poster from the state, uh, and eventually applying for the title for my home. My home's paid for. I've already removed most of my money from the fiat system. I have I've done things that we're supposed to be doing, which is gold, silver, XRP, XLM, all those things I've done. But it seems like I'm still just kind of hanging here and wondering what's the what else can I do? I study, like I said, the natural law today some, and plan on looking at that a lot closer. But just kind of say that and see what you guys could say back to me, if anything. Thank you.
Well, wow,
I'll,
that's a testimony. Go ahead, Mason. You probably want to say something
I'll
to him.
respond. I'll respond to that because this is very important stuff, guys. We're all on the inner. We're all spiritual beings, and we all have a connection to everything. There's nothing existing in the universe that we can't touch. Once our heart's in the right place, and once we're out of the way of all those little things that control us, the ego, the vanity, lust, attachments, and all that garbage. Once that happens, and that's not an easy task. If you think it's easy for that 2-year-old to get on that football field, that's no easy task, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of work, and a lot of effort. But let me tell you, the key is in your quiet time. As crazy as people think this is, if you can't sit quietly, and I'm not saying you got to do it every day or every week. It doesn't matter. The point is, until you're willing to sit quietly and search out the inner voice that we all have access to. It's there. If you don't take the time to even engage yourself in looking for it, it's not interested in you. It's just sitting there waiting. And until you can do this and do it, the more regular you do, I don't care if you just do it before you go to bed at night or when you put your head on the pillow. Uh, and then don't be afraid to ask a question. And I'm not talking about who can help you, because this ain't about who can help you. It's about what you can do to help yourself. And when you start asking the right questions, like, What do I need to do to address this particular thing that I have a problem with? It may be anger. It may be vanity. It may be just plain old fear. There's all these little pieces that we all came into this existence with. But those are the things that we can't take with us. We're not leaving out of this experience with all that junk. And the universe is just waiting to see how many can clean up before the day comes when this transition takes place. And it's here. It's happened untold numbers before, and it's going to happen untold numbers again. It's up to each of us to wake up to what the key is in all of this. And my only function in everything I've done since I come into this crazy thing was to pass on what I know and what I do to get the answers to my problem. My problem. Not your problem, not the system's problem, but my problem. Because if I can't clean this thing up for me, I get to do the wheel again. And I already know what that's like. And most of you are getting a really good idea what it might be because we're all standing here talking about this thing. So get up, do the simple parts first. How hard is it to lay down and listen to yourself and find that frequency or see a light with your eyes closed? It's all there for your benefit, but it's only designed to do one thing, for you to shut that mind down, shut down those negative frequencies that it's constantly emanating, and ask a question what you might need to do to help with your situation, what you do. You know, Kennedy, I think he made that comment. I've made this reference before. He said, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. And that's the same thing as saying, ask not what the universe can do for you. Ask what you can do for the universe. And if you're not capable or willing to become a vehicle, an example, the energy is what you emanate. And the example we're talking about is going to follow you until you go into another incarnation and it'll come back and you'll have to deal with it all over again. But you're constantly growing. As long as you're focused and doing what I'm giving you, you're going to come out of this somehow, even if it's an upgrade to your next go around. I got an upgrade from my next go around. I wasn't looking to come back here, but here I am, and then I found out why. And so all these are the little pieces that you're going to be entitled to once you get your head right, or wrong, however you want to look at that, and get back on track. I yield.
Well, thank you, Mason. Does anybody else have any comments they want to make or any questions they want to ask? Don't be shy.
I also read through the sheriff's manual. I have a copy of that you guys have put on there. I appreciated that. You know, but it's just like I'm still sitting there. You know, what else can I do? You know, and it just really feels lost pretty bad.
I'll give you a little input about that sheriff's manual. Uh,
Okay.
that thing's got very little or nothing to do with our American common law. Okay, and the general system has no idea about what I'm talking about. But this is something that every soul on this planet sooner or later is going to have to deal with. And the sheriff, who has an oath, and they're all being challenged right now, and they're going to get challenged to the point where they're either going to come online or they're just going to dissipate into whatever experience that they're already working up for themselves. But your biggest issue, if you got a problem with that, is going to the sheriff's office and sitting down and say, hey, buddy, I need to talk to you about something. Or send him an invitation to meet you somewhere. And of course, the crazy thing, and I just came to me when I was talking about the posting of the sign and trying to get a copy of it over to the sheriff, just dial 911. They show up. So this is not complicated. but it can be very challenging for most people. Therein lies the great test. Are you willing?
I think I'm willing. I just gotta just keep walking forward, stumbling forward.
I want to add one thing to that. Most people don't understand the spiritual protections that each and every one of us carry with us on our daily lives. And that protection grows based on how much we're willing to stretch ourselves to engage all of those negative things that, whether we like it or not, we took part in creating for ourselves. So the group around you, you may not even know is there. But as long as you're not willing to assist the universe in fixing your problems, that group isn't
It
interested in
seems
you.
we have a glitch going on.
Yeah. So it's very simple. It's not complicated. And your protection zone is based on the things you're willing to do in your life. And so the more you stretch yourself, the more you take that little fear button and punch it.
Can anybody
And
hear me?
are you there, Jim? I heard you. Hello? Is everybody, are we still on?
Yeah, I hear you fine, and hear Jim too.
Okay. Well, as long as you're willing, once you start taking those steps, that protective zone, you can't even imagine how many different ways you can be protected in things that you normally would say, "Oh my God, I couldn't do that. I'm going to get in trouble." You have no idea how many combinations of things that you could be all of a sudden immune to because the spiritual force is looking at you differently now because
Okay.
you're willing.
Seems we have a communication glitch going on.
Oh, I'm not surprised. uh,
Once again, Mason, thank you and Salty Bug. Just know that
Anyway, for
you're
those
doing
of
some
you
good.
that can,
Thank you.
extreme lag.
Mason came through fairly clear, and Silver Jim's been on there from time to time, but he's not lit up.
Well, I'm here.
Yeah, we can hear you too now, Jim.
Okay.
And Mason completed his thought, I think, but we heard all of
Right
that.
now, we are all in the middle of a rescue operation. That's how the best way I can describe it. Those of you who want to be rescued can be rescued, but it takes an element of cooperation and some self-determination to do it. Right now, we're in the middle of a war for the mind and the soul, and we have some very dark energies around us right now. We do need to recognize them for what they are, but we also have to make a choice. Choose what you want and strive for it. Don't be afraid. Now yield.
I wasn't even on. Okay. Is there anyone else that has any comments they want to make?
This is
Not hearing you,
JJ.
RJ.
Oh, this is JJ. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, JJ. Go ahead.
Oh, great. I figured it out. Yay. Step one. Okay. First of all, I just want to say I've been observing
No,
everything that's been said. And
not coming through.
oh, I'm not?
No, you are coming through. Jim's not hearing you though. I don't think his volume is up, or maybe something's not connected correctly. But go ahead, JJ.
Okay. So I'm understanding, I'm clear that I'm a sovereign and I've been struggling to work my way through the system. That's not, but now this is helping give me the tools that I need, because I have hit the wall on all areas that I've been confronted with, But Mason, I need to just be clear with you how I stop this foreclosure. And it's not about the fact that I can't pay the mortgage. A lot of it is the fact that I don't want to pay it because it has been, they've been adding charges that just aren't right, So I am wanting to stop the foreclosure because I will get the money to pay it, but I'm not there yet.
My suggestion to you at this point, um, you might want to take a real serious look at that active state lien. There's an example posted in the links,
Okay.
and you may want to uh, put it together on let's just say a mechanics lien format, without using all of the mechanics lien wording or the statutes. Use the Constitution. Use the things that you have in your arsenal, which would be the Craig versus Missouri Supreme Court case, the Bank of Montgomery versus Jerome Bailey case. There are other cases that are pertinent to your sovereignty and your rights, but those are the things that are going to identify you on paper. Whether you have a diplomatic ID or not is irrelevant. The point I'm getting at is that once you begin to take the steps by creating an instrument that will be known, it doesn't matter if you go ahead and make a mortgage payment. And I'll give you an example. You send a notice of this allodium lien once you get it recorded, or just a simple demand to your mortgage company for them to produce the actual original note for inspection. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled on this topic, okay, and it's a very simple. I believe the case was Finn versus Home, and the court specifically says that in order for a mortgage company to foreclose, they have to have three things. They have to have, first of all, the original note. Didn't say a copy; it said the original. They also have to establish that the party listed on the note is the person who signed it. Now, I'm pretty sure you didn't sign it according to the common law. You probably signed it according to the notary that was sitting there at the table. And the third thing they have to do is establish whether you have any owing on the note. Well, that's the interesting part, because the first things first, the note itself is unlawful in our system. That's the Craig versus Missouri case. No one can use a promissory note to circulate as money. Now you might ask the question, well, my note didn't circulate as money. You want to bet? Once you see the original, you're going to find that there's a pay to the order of stamp not only on that note, if they have the original, and if they don't have the original, there may be other stamps and there may be allonges connected to it. But here's what's happened. They took your note and they deposited it and they put a stamp on the back of it or on the front, wherever your signature's at, that says on it, pay to the order of the lender, whoever it is. What? Pay to the order of? Yeah, without recourse. This is on your note that you don't know they've done, and it's signed by the CFO of that lender. Now, the only thing left is if you can get your sheriff head wrapped around what I'm telling you, and I'm not saying that you can't, but the point is that he's the law enforcement agency for you and your county. Whether he's a qualified a citizen of that state or whatever, this is irrelevant at the point that I'm bringing this to you. That's the office that's responsible. And so whoever's sitting there also has a duty, according to the office. And if they took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, they're being paid by the very thing that you're having your issue with, the Federal Reserve. So you're gonna you're going to put together a document that's going to address the three cases or the three things in the cases that are mandates on the system, which is the original note, and whether you actually paid, whether the note paid for it or not is in their books. You have a right to discovery, which would be their ledgers on the date that your note was deposited in their system. And that will be shown by the rise or the fall of your what? The balance. They either went up or went down. If you gave them the instrument and they loaned you the note, their balance sheet would have went what?
I'm
Would
sorry,
have
I
went
lost you.
down.
Okay.
It would have went down because the money would have come out of somebody's account or a demand deposit account, which is where they deposit it, and it will show that they actually made a payment to you that you now owe them back with interest. But that's not what happened because that note got deposited and then they sent you the bill every month. Pay, pay, pay. Plus the county tax assessor. Pay, pay, pay. So you got all these little pieces that are ahead of your foreclosure, and don't be afraid to make a payment because it's all going to come back to you. You got no reason, if you're in a position where you can actually uh, get this foreclosure thing stopped, you can do it with what I'm telling you right now. And if you have to make a payment to prevent it from going through and kicking out on the street, well, that'd be ridiculous for you not to. Don't be afraid to address the system with you in the driver's seat, because you are in the driver's seat. You just can't see it.
Okay. I got it.
You got an idea?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because I
Mr.
did.
Sheriff.
Pardon
Yeah,
me?
Mr. Sheriff. Mr.
Yeah.
Sheriff. Hey, Mr. Sheriff. Hey, here's the Supreme Court's wording on promissory notes. Uh, they're not allowed. Why? Because they violate Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the Constitution. No state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a payment for debts. Well, what's a promissory note? It's not gold and silver. And the courts have said, And let me tell you something else. That deed that you supposedly have recorded on your property, it's not the title. It's only a
Okay.
color of title. It's a color of title.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Now,
get that. What kind
the
of title?
deed, it's a color of title.
Okay.
It's not title. And the only other instrument that the system recognizes as a allodium, and it doesn't say that it's the allodium title. It says the only other instrument that reaches the allodium is a land patent. Now, I got news for you. It's not the title still, because if the sovereign doesn't hold the patent, it's still not title. But the sovereign doesn't need the patent to have the allodium. All he needs is a allodium lien on the property. The lien is amongst the people as sovereigns. No court can talk about it. They can't even entertain it. That's this act of state doctrine I've been telling you about.
Okay.
This is not some little fly-by-night baloney, maybe it'll work or maybe it won't. This is the axe that's going to cut the head of the snake off. They have no remedy for what this is about. We don't even have any jurisdiction to even talk about it, let alone bring it up in a court proceeding. And if the sheriff is so ignorant that he thinks he's going to stand on the courthouse steps, I mean, if you really want to play the game to the fullest extent, take 21 silver dollars, go down there on the day of the sale, and offer up the 21 silver dollars for the payment.
I did think about doing that because I thought that I would pay for it at a lot less than I would pay for it by honoring their request.
We're not talking about buying or paying anything. We're talking about a principle as an example
Right.
of what the people have the rights to, but they have to demand it. They can't go get an attorney to do it for them.
I understand. Yeah, I'm more than capable of doing that.
I got it. I hear it in your voice. Okay, so there's some other people on the call that I don't know if she's on the call or not. I reached out to her once to see where she's at, but I haven't heard back from her. But that's okay because I know there are other people that are starting to get the idea.
Right. Yeah, I did reach out to you, Mason, and I was waiting to talk with you. So, but this has helped me. You're on the call, and you've given me your handouts, which I'll read. So let me do my research from this call, and I'll start to document my documents together.
They have my number.
Right. I don't have your number. What is your number, please?
I text you.
Oh, well, where in the world is it going?
I
I'll
don't
check
know.
with. Yeah.
Maybe you
Oh,
better talk. You got an iPhone?
I do.
Oh, that's why. oh, oh boy. Okay. Well, I got your number, and
JJ, I'll send it to you.
Oh, okay. That's salty. Okay.
No, that's our Jax. I will send
that's
it
our
to
Jack.
you. I
Oh,
have
I
your, we've been talking
right.
through DM, and I will send it to you in
Okay.
Telegram.
Right. So
Uh,
you're going to send it to me in Telegram. Okay.
Right, I'll send it to you in Telegram.
yeah, and
Perfect.
if you call me before uh, uh, 10:30 or 11 in my time in the morning, I'm not going to answer you.
Well, that's all right then. My time. I don't talk real well. Then it'll take me some time to get my thoughts together. Anyway, so
Make sure it's Pacific time.
Pacific time. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I know you're back there in the Ozarks somewhere.
Yeah, I am. Right now, I want
Good.
to stay quiet because right now we're not on fire. So I want
Yeah.
to more or less
No, no.
be.
You can come to California and take part in that mess.
No kidding. I just am
Well,
trying to be
well, see,
quiet.
look at, and let me say, I'm going to say one more thing about all this crap going on. People don't understand the nature of karma, and everybody that's involved in this planet experience right now is dealing with it at an extreme level
Correct.
because this is the final phases of a particular age that we've all been through many, 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 many times before.
Right. Yep.
And so, for those that are standing on the cusp of a release, that they don't have to do this particular experience again, uh, things can appear to be quite difficult. But the ones that are capable will shine. And we're right in the final blows of this whole thing because the system that we've been all taken part of many lifetimes that we don't even know about is getting ready to completely dissolve, and it can't move into the next frequencies where we're headed.
I totally understand that. Nor can I. So I think I'm doing pretty good with that, and I think that doing this is what I need to do to establish this sovereign status and make a statement, to to our states, if you will.
It's what you do that makes the difference. It's got nothing to do with what you think, what you say. That's all just hyperbole if you want to look at it like
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
It's what you do with your life that makes the difference. That's what Spirit's looking at. Be the example for those around you to do their thing, to do their part, to become part of the joint union of sovereignty.
Correct. And yeah. Okay. Like you're doing. You've got it. You've already established it, but you're giving us the cool tools and the.
My tests aren't over. I'm still in the middle of a bunch of little things. But
Oh.
guess what? I agreed to them.
Oh.
And it's by those things I'm still being the example. You walk the walk, you talk the talk, or whatever. But it's talk is cheap. You've heard that.
Correct.
Show me what you're doing. I want to know what you're doing with your life and how is it affecting those around you, whether they know it or not. Because you're a vehicle. You're a vehicle in this life as you come into it. And so that vehicle is also a duty for you as a spiritual being to pass on the lessons of your spiritual awakening to those who are close to you who are also ready, willing, and able. And they'll come to you. You don't have to go to them because that's not your job. Your job isn't to seek out anybody. Your job is to be the best example you can. And those souls who are around you who know in their own inner, they'll seek you out. They'll be directed. They'll cross your path somehow. It's amazing how many people do. and most people don't get what's going on.
Right. It's funny. I just want to say, Mason, in closing for me, I was just calling to get some paperwork to figure out how to stop a foreclosure. But what
Uh,
I can resonate to everything you're saying in terms of being the spiritual person and who I am on this planet and what I need to do. So I've had a major shift. Thank you.
you bet. Excellent. Congratulations.
I still got to deliver the paperwork. So
That's okay. That's part
I've
of it.
already challenged the sheriff once. So let's just see how I do again.
It's not time to challenge him. It's time to educate him.
Well, whatever. It ends up being a challenge
Yeah.
sometimes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. We'll
Well,
talk
Mason,
tomorrow. Yep.
go ahead. Go ahead,
I
JJ.
just want to close, Mason. I'll call you tomorrow before the right time. What you just said, specific time.
Try about a noon Pacific would be just perfect.
Okay, that would be about 2 o'clock my time. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
I'll be okay. 2 p.m. Got it. All right, check. It'll be fun, Mason. I look forward to it.
You bet.
That's
If
great,
it's not fun,
JJ.
if it ain't fun, you're not having. If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right.
Well, this whole thing is fun if you kind of look at it. Because I keep
Yep.
saying, well, how can I get around this? How can I get around that? And now that I
Hey.
realize that I've got the picture of how deep this thing is, oh
Yeah,
my,
you're it, kiddo.
yeah.
They got no place to go. They can run and hide, but they'll only die tired.
Okay. And I would be energized, happy, and joyful. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, then. Thank you all.
Thank you, JJ, for speaking up, because I'm glad to hear that you and Mason at least got in touch with each other now, and y'all can move forward. You can move forward with your foreclosure
Yeah, well, you know what?
in the
You
right
helped me
direction.
facilitate. I couldn't even figure out how to get on the phone. So I thought, well, this isn't going to work well.
Yeah, yeah,
All right. But thanks to you, you got it handled.
yeah. Good,
Okay.
good.
All right.
Well, Mason, I have a question about something that you told JJ to do. And that was, you told her to take 21 silver coins down to the courthouse if her house goes into foreclosure and they sell it, and offer up that 21 silver coins. Now, did you tell her to take 21 silver coins because she'll be the only one there paying
Nope.
in silver?
No.
No, it wasn't that, huh?
Be somebody else. First of all, she's got the right of first claim anyway because she's in possession of it. She possesses it. The bank doesn't.
Yeah.
Nobody else does. She's living there. Now, have you ever read the Bill of Rights?
I have, but it's been a while.
Did you forget that little thing about the $21 debt?
Yeah, I did. I don't remember reading that part.
Well, it's in there. You might want to go look. So what you're doing is you're offering up the lawful money in accordance with our law to claim a piece of allodium land, which the system doesn't even want you to know about. And that is what gives you the road right straight to the U.S. Supreme Court in an original action. If you're capable of all that, these are some of the little things that some people may be challenged to do just simply because it's the right thing. And all this stuff has already been laid out. It isn't like it's rocket science. It's not buried in some unbelievable place where nobody can find it. It's right in front of everybody. They just don't know what to look for. And when they find it, most people are afraid to take the step. The little 21 silver dollar thing is a big deal. And a lot of people have accomplished just what I'm telling you. Got their property back, whether they got tax exempt status or whether they filed and got allodium liens or a land patent or tax free. I have no idea. I'm just telling you that this little step is a big one.
Yeah, the way I interpreted that when you said it to begin with was the fact that she would be the only one paying in lawful money. Everyone else would be paying in, fiat money.
See, whoever else might show up that might have $21, they don't even have standing in the first place to make the claim.
Yeah, okay.
The only one was standing. See, that there's another whole element to this thing that, I kept waiting, hoping Trump would somehow open that door for people to see that, you're not going to get released from this judicial fiasco just because you're the president. And you're not going to get released just because you got a bunch of attorneys. You're going to get released because this whole thing's a game, and all you're trying to do is to show people how criminal or corrupt the system is. But in all of this, he didn't give people something as an example. Well, what might you do if you find yourself in a situation where the only remedy you think you have is with an attorney? What would you do? Well, I did all that. And the Supreme Court said, and the case got dismissed. So all I'm telling you is that it's still all about standing up, and don't be afraid. I don't care what it is you think that you could possibly imagine would be something horrible going on with this process that you decided to address that would be so terrible that you might just plain die because you just couldn't deal with it, when all you had to do was take the step. I gave a rendition about this one step and the power and what most people are afraid of, the darkness. But guess what? When you're willing to take the step into that darkness, the light comes on. And it comes on in so many different ways, I wouldn't even want to attempt to even give you a list. But that light is what you're looking for. And it won't come on until you're willing to stretch everything about you, the fear, the biggest part, and to move towards the thing you're afraid of. That's when the light comes on, and that's when all the protections, all your angels, all your masters, everybody that's interested in what we're doing right now, they're all looking down and looking at every single soul that's going on here. They know who's ready and who isn't. And they help those that are ready to help themselves. No, because I've been helped more times than I can even tell you about, and in more ways you can even imagine.
Well, does anyone else have any comments they want to make? Jim, do you have anything you want to add to all of this?
Right now, there are many people across the country undergoing battles with the machine, and it is crumbling. Not as fast as many people would like, but it is crumbling. Just start a stalwart in your spirit, pick it up and carry forward. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I'm getting the impression that it is totally all up to us to take that step, definitely. That's been resonating through the last, 3 or 4 calls that we made, that it's really up to us to take that step.
Because no one else is coming to rescue us.
Right.
You are your own remedy. So go take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I happy with how life has been? Do I want to change? What do you really want? Do you want a better world, a better life for you and your family? Because in large part, when you pick up and do something about this, you also do it for your children and your grandchildren. That's all I got to say.
May I?
Yes, please.
Hi, this is Julie. And on that note, Mike, I just wanted to make a couple of comments here based on what I've heard. And I apologize, I didn't join the call until about 15 minutes into the call, so I wasn't able to hear Mason's presentation. However, on the issue of the mortgage, it's really advised, because of the mortgage fraud, that everyone who has a mortgage, if you can, request a forensic audit of your mortgage. And it will take you back to the time when, as Mason claimed, you need to have the evidence of the date at which the note was deposited. And that audit will show the fraud. Okay, so that's one thing to have and arm yourself with should something come your way. I did know a man who went to the courthouse steps with 21 silver dollars and presented that at the sheriff's sale of one of his properties. And what resulted was deer in the headlights stares from the people who were there. They didn't know what to do, and they were quite taken by this action. They were very unprepared. And so they tried to employ some stall tactics that did succeed. So he didn't know how to respond at the time. And so they delayed the sheriff's sale. And later he was able to address it. But I wanted to find out if Mason had anything to say about that. Should someone arrive on the steps with their silver coins and that action was stalled for some reason, that's when you really have to step into your personhood and demand that the sale be final. So I'm just curious about that. And then I did have something else to say after you say that or respond to that. So I'll yield for a moment.
As far as the events, how many people have done this particular thing and their experiences in it is based on who they are, what they were willing to do, and whether they could carry this thing to the extent that we're talking about, which is actually having an allodial lien and be exempt from the taxes and from any kind of outside trespassing on that property. And that has to do with the status of the person and his willingness or her willingness to do what we're talking about here. That silver thing is just another cog in a wheel. But just like the Supreme Court has said, what exactly about the title does it take to acquire the allodium? And they've never answered that question. All they said is that the only thing that would touch the allodium was the land patent. Not a deed, because a deed is not title. It's a color of title. In fact, the deed is the thing on the record that's taxable. That's what allows them to tax you. It's the deed. Not the note, not the IOU, nothing else, just that deed. So that allodium side, that lien, that's the key. And it takes the sovereign along with the metes and bounds and the possession to claim it. And those are the steps. And it's not complicated. In fact, there was a time in our history, and I've got statutes on this particular point, where the state actually went through the process. When anybody wanted to buy a piece of land, they would start the process once the amount was satisfied on the land itself. And by the way, that was only based on the cost of surveying. That's it, nothing else. You can't speculate land. You can't buy a piece of land and then build a bunch of stuff on it and then sell it for, whatever these people are thinking that the land's worth because of some building. That's not how our system was set up, and that's not how it works. So once you get to that point where you understand the difference between what title is and what the elements must be in order for it to reach the allodium, you're going to understand very simply sovereignty is number one. Without that, you got no claim, you got no right. You're just another taxpayer.
Yeah, so you mentioned, you have to know your status and standing, and I would echo that. That's definitely something you have to be able to declare publicly and, know what that means. In other words, you have to know who you are and you have to know who you are not in order to express it.
There's a simple beginning to that. There's a simple active state, no trespassing, entering foreign soil sign that everybody could create, put on their front door, put it in their car, on their dashboard, carry it around in their pocket, or do it. If you wanted to really educate people on who and what they should be and what you are, that would be a good way to start. That's why that was the first test in this whole process. Put that sign out there. Get the state seal. Send it to the sheriff. Mail it to the Secretary of State's office. Get it up to the governor or the attorney general. And most importantly, make sure the sheriff understands and knows what the heck you're doing and why. That's the first step. That leads to the allodium. That leads to everything else you might want to do with that property. But you can't speculate it. That's another matter. That's why all these renters and all these rental companies and everything, they're in deep trouble. They have no idea where this thing is going.
Thank you. My next comment had to do with just a court action. And, it's all fraud. And you mentioned jurisdiction, but I think what's important to note is that a judge is presenting himself in two jurisdictions from the first notice that is sent, which would probably be like a summons. And you can look on there and you can see with your eyes the evidence of the fraud, which is an all caps and an upper lower case. Okay, so we have the two jurisdictions that are being presented. And on that alone, you can simply just return service for void for fraud, sign it and date it, and send it back. Because by the maxim of law, the claim has been satisfied. And really, that should take care of everything, just from the very first paper that's received. Anyway, that's all I had to say, and I yield.
Yeah, that'll get you a UCC1, secure party creditor. All that documentation has already, come and gone. Uh, the point now is that instead of challenging the court, you can send the stuff back if you want. It's irrelevant. You don't even have to send nothing back. But you can do a peremptory on the judge and set him up for treason because
Yes, precisely.
his
Yes, it
jurisdiction,
is a felony on his part because he's working
no, it's
out of the
treason.
UCC or the
No,
UCMJ.
it's a treason. It's not a felony. It's treason. It's high treason. They've all been operating in a foreign capacity to exterminate the citizenry. Have you ever looked up the word um, genocide in Title 18? It's in there. It's amazing what that element is identifying. They've eliminated everything about this people in this nation: their money, their property titles, their law, and their status. That's all of those elements and more are identified under that genocide provision in Title 18. Now the military is in charge. When they're going to actually stick their little heads out from underneath the rock they've been hiding under, I'm just breathless waiting for the moment. I got some finger pointing to do because I got a bunch of places where people have been given the opportunity to do the right things in judicial proceedings who were just unwilling to. But there's going to be a huge number, if they haven't already been happening, of people that have been indicted and that the indictments have either been opened or a process of opening, getting those alive and well. And there are other places around the world where they're also having these trials, tribunals. So we're at a point now where all of this old stuff we did, I did all these things. Everything you can think of, I did it already. And I know from whence it comes. I know how we've come to this place in time. And this is not the time for that kind of stuff. This is the time for you to wake up and take the step yourself, personally, towards one of these issues that we keep talking about. And that no trespass time's the first big one. And it's on the site as well. I think it's posted there somewhere.
Thank you. I apologize for speaking over you during your reply.
No, that's quite all right, honey. That's fine.
Well, Julie, I want to thank you for bringing all of that up because, the more we make these points, the more people will understand, that we all need to be part of this and we all need to take some steps to actually be part of this. So I thank you for jumping in there. Does anyone else have any questions or any comments they'd like to make?
Yes, I do.
Go right ahead. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, the 34 states that existed before the Civil War officially admitted the other 16 states were really nothing more than business entities on paper effective October 1 of 2020. So all 50 states of the Union or states are alive and well. So American land law was openly proclaimed October 5th of this year. On the 8th of October, the military, which had been operating as a foreign mercenary complex, was brought under American land law. There was a document submitted called Milligan Ex Parte, and many of us had left a little carrot in it for Donald, who had been acting as commander-in-chief of a foreign military, to bring it home to be the commander-in-chief of the Amalgamated American Armed Forces. That conversion effectively took place October 8th. So the military, when they are activated, will be dealing against the foreigners amongst us, the embedded Antifa, and everybody else that's been hiding under a rock. What do you think America will look like if 22 million British Tories are exported, plus the criminal element from the illegal aliens amongst us? Because it's coming, folks. The last time I looked at PACER, which is the federal court action software, there were over 700,000 sealed indictments. And each indictment can hold 99 defendants. Do the math. And yes, Mason was correct. There are numerous places around the world. Tierra del Fuego, there's an island off the coast of Spain, and a number of other islands. So think of the island of Dr. Moreau. I yield.
May I? This
Yes,
is
please
Julie
do.
again.
Yeah, go
So,
ahead.
in considering these things, it's also very important, as I'm sure most people are aware, but it warrants being stated, that the media and the things that we're seeing in the media are not so, or they're being construed to be viewed as a certain thing when in fact it's not. It's something different. This whole talk about Canada joining the American states and all of this is just a bunch of hoo-ha, because Canada was a commonwealth under the United States Inc. that was bankrupt. And so they are being acquired because they were a franchise organization under that. They have to be basically defaulted as well. So it just is, what you see is not what's really happening. And so just throw caution to the wind for people to keep that in mind, not to get all caught up in all that narrative that's swirling around out there. I yield.
Mason, do you have anything you want to add to that? Just curious.
Well, as far as all this statehood stuff, it ain't about some corporation. It ain't about a bunch of subjects. It's about sovereignty, and it's about people coming together under those conditions. Um, there's going to be always somebody at the head of some level that wants to make the idea that oh, we can control all this at some other level. There's going to be people trying to create banking and all kinds of stuff to control the money and the gold and all the else. But all this stuff that we're looking at right now is just a big trap. And for those that can see and understand what's going on in their own self and are willing to take a step towards the direction that we've already pointed out, but those are the ones that are going to be released from all this political garbage, which is about 99%. And I'm just going to make this one last statement about the military. And I'm not saying they're good, bad, or otherwise, but they were formed and founded out of a group that was only interested in one thing: controlling the planet. And that constitutional provision that did that, um, I don't necessarily agree with it, but it was necessary in order to get us to where we are right now. The true militia, the militia, which are the citizens of the state, are the ones who are the actual military of each of our states, and that's the bottom line when it comes to military. The rest of it was just a big thing created for the little people who think they're going to control the planet.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
I do have one thing to add.
Go ahead, Jim.
Look in the landscape around you and enroll in something called a CERT program. CERT means Community Emergency Response Team Training. Whenever there's an accident, a disaster, who's ever on site are the first responders. When the bridge collapsed in California, the people surrounding the area were the first responders before the fire department and anybody else got there. There were hundreds of CERT personnel in the area that responded before the pros did. Be part of that community. Be willing to help your neighbor, your family, and then spring out from there. And Julie and I are both CERT certified. I yield.
Well, I think that's a great thing to do. Do they have that in every state, by the way?
Some form of it.
Because I was thinking about, some of these states that, well, like California right now with the fires and with um, North Carolina with the hurricane that hit there. The government did not, or FEMA did not step in and do what they should be doing. And it took the community itself to help each other. But they were not formed under something called CERT or anything, but they did just, reach out and help each other.
Right.
So I
Well,
was wondering if they have that in every state.
Yeah, there are different styles of it. You can go online and find what's called a hybrid CERT class. And I would really encourage everybody to learn first aid. If you're at home having a barbecue, you're there, you've got some training, something happens, you don't have to wait minutes or hours for the fire department to show up. And on top of it, I've been doing a little bit of research. In 2007, there was a huge fire in California, and someone I know was burned out. I'm seeing similarities to what's going on in California right now. And FEMA is nothing more than a bunch of federal insurance adjusters with some other additional tasks behind them. They're very slow to show up. When they do, they don't do a good job. And so I'm wondering what kind of mineralization or other natural resources in that region with that fire. Because the California-based insurance companies have all sent out riders to limit their liability exposure. And I think that's inside knowledge. Wink, wink. I yield.
And yeah, I heard a lady speaking on YouTube saying something like that they were their fire insurance, part of their insurance was removed before the fire. So they do not have fire insurance now.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
I'm so sorry to hear that. It's just been a travesty. One thing people should know, I learned this not too long ago, is that if you have a mortgage, then you do not have the power, the authority over said property that you think you do. So there is a mortgage service provider that owns and has the rights to the power of attorney over the property. And so what you need to do is revoke that power of attorney. And then when a disaster of such happens, heaven forbid it does, there's a form called, well, you'll be approached by FEMA, or you can approach FEMA for assistance. And then there's what's called a right of entry. That is a form that you fill out. And I want you to think of it kind of like a will for your property. And you could do this ahead of time just on your own. Create a Word document that just says, if anything happens to my property, I want this tree left here. Don't jackhammer the driveway, leave the shed. There's, valuables inside, whatever. The right of entry is a document that is a very powerful one, because there's a debris monitor that's assigned to every site. And when they get to your site, they're going to pull that form out and execute it exactly to the letter of how you've described your property to be treated. And They will even call you to say, hey, we're coming to your property tomorrow. Do you want to be there? Do you want us to know anything more? You know, that kind of thing. So you can see how if you are not the one in charge, if the mortgage service provider has the POA, they may do nothing. And so you see these homes being completely destroyed, and they just level the property. And people feel devastated because, of course, they feel like they're homeowners and that's theirs. They don't realize that there's this little clause in the mortgage that states that the power of attorney lies with the service provider. So that's just a little bit of info that I hope is helpful to you. I don't have anything more to say. I yield.
That's very interesting, Julie. You know, I've been following the North Carolina stuff, and I don't know who went through and condemned all the properties, but someone went through and condemned properties in North Carolina, and the people, you're right, they had no right. They just demolished the homes that were condemned. And the people had no say, and the people had no right to even enter the property once it was condemned. So that's a very powerful thing that you just shared with everybody. Does anybody else have anything they want to add tonight? Any questions or anything? Jim or Mason, do you want to have any last comments you want to make tonight?
I do.
Go right ahead.
The American election of historic means has been held in March, not January. Our federal level contractors have gone bankrupt. So don't be in shock and awe at what transpires on the so-called January election day. There have been attempts at smoke and mirrors and a imposter rebuild of our American Republic. There are stepping stones of history that we have to go through to rebuild them, and be careful of any form of paperwork, any form of election that you're offered. Be very careful. Without status and standing, you might be offered to elect a president of Dunkin' Donuts of Yugoslavia. I yield.
Okay, I'm not sure I understood that, Jim. You're saying that you said that federal contractors, the ones that do the elections, are bankrupt. Is that what you said?
We've had corporate sound-alikes running in tandem behind our backs, one municipal and one from the British territorial government. They have masqueraded as the American government, and they've been doing it since Abraham Lincoln. There's been a series of bankruptcies. The first one went in 1906. Then under FDR, there was a bankruptcy, and then there are numerous reorganizations. Donald Trump took the company known as United States, Inc., into bankruptcy, and it settled October 1 at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So right now we are under military continuity of government protocols. That main parent corporation has subsidiaries known as the state of Illinois, state of Florida. Those went bankrupt. In your respective counties, you have corporate county charters, both territorial and municipal. They have all gone bankrupt. The only legitimate government standing is the American people. Period.
Wow. Now, are there any legitimate American people who understand what needs to be done?
I do.
Well,
Julie
yeah,
does. Thank you, Julie.
I do. Mason does. And when I go down the list, Low Tide gets it. Yeah,
Well,
there's a few.
what I'm wondering though, Jim, is who's going to be leading all of this, and for us not to listen to whoever it is that's saying the wrong thing.
First of all, you need to be able to read anything that you get presented.
Okay.
Our vocabulary has been so convoluted between all caps, upper lowercase, and lowercase. You need to master it. Because when you create this active state, how you construct it will have great implications. Your American birthright was mothballed. Every last one of us has been criminally put upon. Your birth certificate is the first item in your life that perpetrates the fraud, let alone what happened to our country under Lincoln. Your birth certificate is actually a bonding instrument. Your American birthright was mothballed, put into a trust. All your blood, sweat, tears, intellectual property right sits in a trust. Everyone needs to come forward to lay claim to their trust. This is how we will repopulate the land of the free. When you come for your stuff, get recognized as amongst the living people, you'll also be exercising some spiritual laws in play. Now yield.
Well, when you say everyone needs to come forward and lay claim to their trust, are you basically saying everyone needs to really come forward and lay claim to their sovereignty? Is that kind of what you're saying? Show that you are not part of the corporation anymore?
Well, the corporation no longer exists.
Well, that's
The
true. So we're in
Federation,
limbo. Yeah, we're in limbo.
yeah, the Federation of States already claimed everything. All the assets sit inside two giant trusts. One for the country, roads, bridges, parks, and things like that. But your individual birthright as an American was pledged as a collateral item to generate the spent credit of the company. You were misidentified as a British subject, not an American, and a whole slew of other things. Oh, and you were also declared dead on paper and probated. There's no provision in this country for probate courts. That's just a short list of stuff.
So probate was only in the corporate part of the government?
Yep, 49 CFR 300 through 399 is a whole slew of definitions that are specific to the corporate banking cartel. And when they created the Securities Exchange Commission, the 6, 7, and 9 securities licenses, they compartmentalize the keys to the financial kingdom. Unless you have all of the keys, you might not be able to see the landscape at 80,000 feet, let alone having it thrust in your nose. I was fortunate enough in 1983. I was fortunate enough to be laid off from the company I was working for, and I picked up my insurance license, and I got exposed to a bunch of stuff. And then I started studying for my securities licenses. I stumbled into a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Along the way, several of us have mutually stumbled into stuff. And it's a rather convenient time because so many of these questions have been brought together and answered. You just have to look for the appropriate source. It's available. You want help? Help will come your way. I yield.
Wow, there's just so much to all of this that we don't know. You know, that the regular person that hasn't been studying this for years, we just don't know. That's for sure.
Hey, RJ.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Say I am.
I am.
Miss Aoki, say I am. Say I am.
I am.
You just invoked your law. Do you know
That's
how?
great. No.
This is called the I am.
Okay. In the Bible, it talks about God giving a job to someone by the name of Adam to go out and name the beasts of the field.
Mm-hmm.
You just invoked, you're on the Adamic side of that duty cycle. Write on paper, N-A-M-E. Now, enemy, that's what a name is, a nom de guerre, a name at war. Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's so convoluted and simple as that. So when someone says, well, is your name so-and-so? No, it looks like something close to what I go by, but that ain't me. And sometimes if a prosecutor will hold up a piece of paper and say, well, is that your signature? And you just look at them quizzically and go, no, if that was mine, why would you have it? Simple logic.
May I?
Well, yes, please.
Having been a former federal employee as a public school teacher, we used to teach students to say their name. My name is blah, blah, blah. My name is, And so it just really grinds my gears when I hear people saying my name is. And thanks, Mike, for reiterating that. But this kind of goes back to something that Mason brought up earlier, which had to do with the stylization, or maybe it was Mike, stylization that's used in language. And I kind of brought this up gently in a post that I put in the channel, and that has to do with reading is different than speaking. So you'll hear people, or you'll see in written form, words listed in double speak, where it will have one version of the word and a slash and then another version of the word. For example, lowercase p, people, and all capital people, or capital P, people, and they all mean something different. But when we speak, they all sound the same. And so herein lies another layer of the fraud that has been usurped upon us. So we have to be very, very clear when we're dealing with the de facto that the entity that they are dealing with is a usufruct derivative that we own the rights to. But typically what we encounter is their attempts to try to revenue that, right? But we don't give them authorization to use it. It's only when we do that it's available. But they just sort of assume that they can. So this is why it's really, really important to heed the warning and correct your status. Because these things cannot be claimed unless you do. I mean, of course, we all see ourselves as being Americans and we're all neighbors and community members and so forth. But in their eyes, we are U.S. citizens or citizens of the United States. Okay. And if you have a birth certificate and you haven't rebutted the presumptions and the assumptions, then you are. And you're either going to be considered an indentured servant or an all-out slave by doing so. And so I just want to reiterate how important it is that you read clearly what you are speaking and you see things in written form that are spoken to you. And don't just take it at face value, because it gets very confusing. And we don't speak legalese. Americans speak English. Okay, so just be really clear. If you're challenged by the language and you're facing someone who's trying to speak to you, who wants to exercise authority, like a law enforcement officer or something, just say, can you put that in writing, please? Because I don't speak your language. Legalese is foreign and it's gobbledygook by design. That's all I have to say. I yield.
That's a great thing to do, is to ask them to please put it in writing, since we don't understand. Because I know I don't understand. I'm trying to learn, but there's a lot to learn, especially with the language. Like, what do the capitals mean? Yeah, when our name is in all caps, what does that mean? When our name is in, the first letter is cap, then lowercase, the rest of it. What does that mean? We need to learn all of this and be proficient at it. Not just hear of it, but to really be proficient at it if we're going to, go to the sheriff and go to the courts and do the things that we really need to do. We need to know all of these things for sure.
Well, Capitis Diminutia Maximus is Roman stylized evidence of a corporate entity. Capitis Diminutia Medius is a mix of upper and lowercase. And the hidden key there is we need to ask, what kind of person is this? Because persons can be created in a number of different jurisdictions. The word law means land, air, and water. And yes, those are 3 jurisdictions. We're improperly taught or hardly ever taught how to use the lowercase language. And I'll take the letter I as an example. That little dot is actually the expression of a man's head. And when you decapitate the man, you kill him, and he's in the realm of the dead. And that's where corporations dwell. That's why Capitis Divinutia Maximus exists. That's a good start. I yield.
Where do we go, Jim, to learn what you were just saying?
We can gather some material and put it on the page. The Federation has utilized a great number of people. Right now, the Federation of States is about 900 people big. As an organization, they're scattered all over the place. We'll make some material available.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Because I would love to read it. Oh, JP, go ahead.
Yes. What do you think about the group that meet? It's called Tactical Civics. Have you heard of them? I don't know. I live in Michigan, and I was going to go to one of the meetings. I haven't been able to, but it just seems that everyone has their own adaptation of the law and how to study it or what it means, etc. Earlier, I just was going to say it would be nice if, and Hillsdale College is a college of Constitution law. And you would think that they would have, like we had in school, a book, about it. Do you know what I'm saying?
All
Right.
of the writers of
Go ahead, Jim.
books,
Yeah.
all the writers of books have been compromised. The publishing houses have to be reestablished. And that's part of our rebuilding we need to do.
Well, that's good news. Maybe that's what we should do is have a book. I mean, I'm the way that I learn, I'm a visual learner. And like, step one, blah, 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 blah. And it just would be nice. And I would assume that people would get together across the land, and because it all has to agree, right? It's all the same everywhere, correct? Or do we make different stuff for each community? That's if you're making your own community, or just, let's say, state to state, correct? Or not?
Well, go ahead, Mason.
No, that was me.
Oh,
Low tide. One of the things that Salty tonight, as when you mentioned step one of the things that she did tonight was she reposted Mike Mason's step one, which was the posting of their state seal and the right of property, where they post the do not trespass. And I'll just mention that there's a great listing of links and material on his link site, the Taskmaster's links, and that works the same for Silver Jim. Salty has posted a great library of information for both Mason and Silver Jim for all of the listeners to go and access. And if they want to, they will spend hours, if not days, researching all of that information. and they will find vast amounts of research information that will help them very much. It's helped me a great deal to not only educate myself, but to find energy, to just give me courage, and to stand firm in what I learn and know. And so I'll just yield at that point. But I just want to make sure that on the Constitution team call, when you end on the call, you will see that this link is right there at probably the last thing that's been posted from Salty Toes. So I'll end with that.
May I?
Yes, go ahead, Julie.
So just to answer the question, now I can't remember who asked the question about the different things that you're seeing out there, different groups and that sort of thing. So obviously you're using your discernment to, kind of weigh who's who in the zoo. And one thing you need to be aware of and to be asking in your discernment is, do they have standing, and do they have the provenance to do what they're doing? And I can guarantee you that none of them do. Okay. And so they want to, and they're not bad people, and they're just slightly off course. Let's just look at it that way. Okay. I'm not trying to paint a picture of right and wrong. It's really more about going about something correctly in order to not find yourself in trouble. Okay. And if you are going to join a group, be aware of their provenance and standing. And if they don't have it, then you have to decide whether or not you're willing to take the risk. Because, as I said before, you are still considered a U.S. citizen or a citizen of the United States. And the activities of those groups, for, trying to be on the right track or not, they can be seen as insurrectionists, and therefore they can be jailed and imprisoned and tried and found guilty. And so we don't want that for anyone, And like Mike said earlier, this is a rescue operation. We're really trying hard to get our feelers out to people so that they can learn who they are. How is it that you are a sovereign? Do you know? Are you able to say how and why and to what degree you have standing? How did you come about that? And it's important. It's the foundation of your ability to exercise your authority. So that is really priority number one when you're trying to decide, do these people have validity in what they're doing? And, some of them have all these really fancy things that they put out there. Just remember, Americans are simple. Nothing is complicated. Number one. Number two, if there's a paywall involved, that's a big red flag. Okay? There are no documents anywhere that you should have to pay for to be able to declare your birthright status as an American. And so that's really important. And if they're not, if groups are not encouraging you to correct your status, that's also a red flag. Because just as a thing is bound, it must be unbound. And Mike alluded to this whole birth certificate fraud that happened. And that's what you have to unbind. And unfortunately, every man and woman has to do it for themselves. No one can do it for you. And Mason talks about that. So You have to be the one to do the declaration, to bring yourself onto the land and let it be known publicly, meaning you have to put it on the public record by publishing it. And so anyway, we can get into that another time, but I just wanted to help you with your question about how do you discern the various groups, and I hope I gave you something more to think about. I yield.
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you so much. That's exactly everything so well put. So I thank you for that. And the gentleman, low tide, was speaking about having the courage. I have the courage, but I need to be better at saying it. I want to say it fluently, okay, without thinking, without, you know, being afraid to say the wrong thing, because that's also tricky. And so that's all. But thank you. Yes. So I have to do a lot of studying, and I will.
Comment to that.
Okay.
Everybody gets an opportunity in their life to go to a place that they don't know, to do something that they don't understand, to simply stand up and agree to be a vehicle. And excuse me, I got a little little bean in my throat there. These opportunities come to everybody. It depends on when they're ready, what they're willing to do, and what their mission might be in this particular life or their assignment. But the one thing I'll guarantee you, 1,000%, that until you're ready to step into a place which you cannot see the outcome, to address an issue involving you and your personal life and your personal property, and willing to open your mouth in that setting, you have no idea what will come out. And because of this unbelievable little miracle of spiritual prowess that we all possess, it amazes me how many people are afraid to let the universe speak for them. All it takes is for you to be willing to step into a place where you feel like you're lost, the poor little sheep that's lost its way. But you know something's wrong, and you're willing to stand up and open your mouth. And when you do, there's things that go along with that. You know, speaking isn't the only issue here. It's what you're willing to do that's so important. So don't think that you're alone, because you're not. You're never alone. And the more involved you get with challenging those little parts of yourself that cannot go with you into the fifth world, until you're ready to do that, you're going to be stuck here until you figure out what it is you should have been doing that may have catapulted you into that position. So this is not some lighthearted little experience for the average little unaware, afraid kid who doesn't understand life and isn't willing to grow, because that's the biggest part of it. So quit looking around and wondering who's going to help you, because the universe is there ready. All you got to do is put your hand up and say, I'm ready, and then do something. You got to do something or nothing gets activated.
Wow. And thank you. Exactly what I needed to hear. God bless.
May I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is Julie on Washington. I just wanted to say thank you for that, Mason. Yeah, really, you know, it's a pattern of behavior that we have to get out of, which is the indoctrination thinking that someone else is going to solve my problem. And we've been trained to look to authority. We've been trained to, you know, have someone else enter the scene to tell us how to solve our problems. And this mindset is, I'm in my mid 50s. And so I have that many years that I have to undo. And so it's not going to happen overnight. Here's a quick trick to help you. Write a sticky note with the words you want to master. Put it on your mirror, put it by your front door, and say it to yourself out loud every time you're there. And then it becomes habituated in your mind. And once you start getting it habituated, and as you're practicing it, you're going to start to think of those words, different words within the statement, differently, and go, wait, oh, yeah, oh, that's really what that means. You're going to have some really big aha moments. And that's powerful, because that's really owning this journey. It's just so important that you allow yourself the grace and the time to get off your couch and let it happen at your pace. Nobody should be twisting your arm. Nobody should be telling you, you must do these things, right? And I know I kind of sounded like, hey, don't do this unless you are declared American. But I'm just trying to be cautious about what people are suggesting for you to do. And I wouldn't want anyone to be in harm's way. And on that note, I did want to add that the Federation of States does have a blueprint of how to go about the assembling process, just as our forefathers did. We're not creating anything new. This is all something that has been laid out before, and we are simply trying to reconstruct what was, putting the power in the hands of the people. And it's not that it wasn't there before. We have always been here. Our government has always been here. We just haven't been in session. So the assemblies were called into session by our hereditary head of state, and we are assembling, and all 50 states are assembling right now. Ohio has fully stood up. They are working on being seated, which means that every official position in the Ohio Assembly is actually occupied by a true declared American state citizen, on this citizen of Ohio, not of an Ohio citizen, meaning an Ohioan. And so we have to do that on all 50 states. That's what we're doing. And if you want to be a part of that, meaning, yeah, you want to be a part of the, governing body, then join us. It's not hard, but it does take time, and we are all volunteer. There's no money involved, but it is happening, and we do have the provenance and the standing to do it. So, and we are recognized internationally. And so I just wanted to throw caution at some things that I've heard people say, but not forgetting to share some important tidbits of information regarding, how do we do this? So with that, I yield.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Julie. Okay, does anyone else have any comments to make?
Excuse me, could you repeat the name of the Federation of, so I can write that down correctly? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you're looking for the Federation of States.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Jim or Mason, do either of you have any closing remarks that you'd like to make, or do you feel like you've already made enough? I mean, we would love any comments you have.
I will repost the AmericanStatesAssembly.net homepage. We have all kinds of articles and learning materials available for you. I'll post it back on the main page.
Okay.
Can I add to that really quick? Those of
Please
you
do.
that are wanting to connect with your state coordinator to find out more information about your state assembly, maybe it would be worth directing a question in the channel, either to myself or Mike, and we can help get you the contact for more information specifically for your state.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be great. Mason, do you have anything you want to add to any of this? I don't even see Mason. Did he sign off already?
I think he's off.
I'll go out on a limb and
Okay,
say
go ahead.
we have to be careful on the Friday night call to make sure that we're not promoting. The Saturday night call was intended to promote the growth of the assemblies, and the Friday night call was intended to promote the Mason education, and so we need to go back to that focus, and then that protects that time. We've gone a little over 2 hours, and that's not harmful, but we need to make sure that we focus and protect that 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 focus on Mason's education, and that it becomes a little bit controversial if we go back and forth and between Mason's education, because he tries to be very focused, and it frustrates him when we start talking about the assemblies. And I know that because I've been the recipient of some of that frustration, and so I just share that with you, and I'm certain that that's probably why he's not here right now.
Okay, I'm glad you pointed that out to us, Low Tide.
Well, I don't mean it any harm, and it's not harmful to have the conversation, but we did all these assembly focus calls on Saturdays, and that's probably what we need to start doing again.
Okay. Well, is there anyone else who has any questions that they'd like to bring up tonight?
Just as a follow-up really quick, I wasn't aware, I'm kind of new to the channel, so I apologize. I wasn't aware that there is a separate call. And so by no means did I want to,
Yeah.
step over any of that.
No,
But
it
one
wasn't.
question I do have is, which assemblies are you speaking of? Because there again, that's one of those
Well,
areas that's kind of a Pandora's box.
There are several assemblies. There's Silver Jim is very well tied to the American assemblies with Anna Van Rice, and I'm very well aware of the American assemblies, and I don't know exactly what you're tied to. Are you tied to the American assemblies as well?
I'm a part of the American States Assemblies.
American States Assemblies.
I'm
yes,
not a
and
part of a district assembly,
yeah,
no.
yes, and there's also the United States Assemblies. There's like 4 or 5 different separate groups, and they all represent different sects. It's almost like denominations within a church, and so that frustrates Mike, and he doesn't want to segregate or try to represent them or referee them. So anyway, I'm not trying to referee them either.
If I may, no, I think that it's important though, because for people to be able to discern the differences between them
Yes,
and what
yes,
they are. And I think this
yes,
goes along the lines of asking,
yes,
where
ma'am.
is the provenance and standing to be
Yes,
able to stand up a government?
yes, ma'am.
Whereas,
I
I
do.
can walk down the street and join my district assembly as a U.S. citizen. Okay.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so if people don't know the difference, which,
Yes,
hey, we're going to have people in all walks of life, and that's
yes,
totally fine.
yes,
And the key here is in trying to reconstruct the American government. Okay.
yes,
So
yes,
that's what
ma'am.
I'm trying to distinguish the
Yeah,
differences for.
yes.
And
The point of
yeah,
it was, yes, you're well heard and well received. The point of it was that it that is not the intended focus of a Friday night call. And so we just wanted to try to bring it back to what it was well intended. And it's not a criticism. It's just that we realized about, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months ago, that there was a difference of the intent of the Friday night call and the Saturday night call. And we need to respect these two men and um, not have them bringing forth different points of view on the same night, because it creates a little bit of a diversion when they try to bring forth their points of view, when they're each trying to bring forth a distinct message on the same night. And so they might bring forth a 15-minute point of view, and then the other one brings a separate 15-minute point of view, and sometimes they're a little different. And so Jim has a vast knowledge, and so does Mason. Silver Jim usually is a little more organized than Mason, and sometimes Mason starts on one thing and ends on another, but they're very intelligent and very experienced. And with all due respect to both of them, we don't want to lose either one of them. And that's just the point of it. And I was just trying to explain that and not have us in the call tonight with any disrespect to either one.
Well, thank you for that, Low Tide. I appreciate you stepping in and explaining that.
Well,
So I think that what we need to do tonight then is just go ahead, because we have covered a lot of information tonight.
yeah,
And we all need to try to take it all in. And so I think what we're going to do is go ahead and close the call out tonight, and we will meet again next Friday. And I want to thank every one of you for speaking out tonight, asking questions. And that's how we learn. We learn by, somebody has a question and boy, that was just what I was thinking. I needed to get an answer to that. So I appreciate everyone for speaking out tonight, and we will take all of this information and try to absorb it. And we'll meet again next week where I'm sure have a lot more questions. So thank you all and have a blessed weekend.
Be
happy
safe,
birthday,
everyone.
RJax.
thank you.
Yes.